Have you ever really stopped to think about how that map inside your head actually got there? You know, how we go from this idea of a giant blue marble floating in space to knowing the exact route to our favorite coffee shop? Well, let's get into it, because today we're exploring that fundamental journey of how we build our mental map of the world using a framework that is, honestly, surprisingly brilliant. It really all boils down to this one big question. And we're not talking about just, memorizing capitals for a quiz. We're talking about the actual process of discovery. It's about taking this massive, complicated planet and making it make sense, piece by piece. I just love this little poem. It perfectly captures the spirit of what we're doing here, that making a map isn't just some dry science. It's an art. It's a creative act of drawing lines, defining spaces, and when you get right down to it, telling the story of a place. So, let's start the journey. And we're going to start at the highest level possible with our planet, our puzzle. I want you to picture the Earth as one giant, beautiful, and maybe a little overwhelming jigsaw puzzle. You dump all the pieces out on the table and you have that moment of, okay, where do I even begin? Well, with any puzzle, the first thing you do is sort the pieces, right? You find all the edge pieces, you group the colors. For our planet, that first big sort is dividing land and sea. This is the most fundamental cut we can make, separating the blue parts from the green and brown parts. It's step one in making sense of the whole thing. So let's start with the land. A continent is really just a huge chunk of land, usually with water all around it. And we've identified 7 of these giant puzzle pieces on our planet. This gives us our main land masses to work with. And then, of course, you have the oceans, these massive areas of sea that sit between the continents. But look at that number on the slide, over 70%. That's so important. It's a huge reminder that we are living on a water world. The oceans aren't just the gaps between the pieces. In a lot of ways, they are the puzzle. Okay, now here is a fantastic way to finally lock in the difference between 2 places that, let's be honest, get mixed up all the time. The Arctic gets its name from the Greek word for bear, thanks to a constellation, and it's basically a bunch of ice floating on an ocean. It's also where you'll find polar bears. But Antarctica? Its name literally means opposite of the bear. No bears there. And it's not an ocean, it's a whole continent, an actual landmass, just buried under a massive sheet of ice. See how a few simple facts can make everything click? All right, so we've sorted our puzzle into land and sea, but that's still pretty broad. How do we find one specific spot on this giant globe? Well, to do that, we need another layer. We need to start drawing the global grid. This is a totally imaginary set of lines that we humans came up with to give every single point on Earth its own unique address. So how in the world do you remember which lines are which? Here's a great little trick. Just remember that latitude has a big attitude, so the flat lines are lat lines. These are the horizontal ones that run around the Earth, kind of like rungs on a ladder. And what about the other ones? Simple. Just remember that longitude is tall and long. These are the lines that go the long way up and down, from the North Pole all the way to the South Pole. It's a goofy little way to remember, but hey, it works. So what happens when we use these lines to slice the Earth up? We get hemispheres. And the word itself tells you everything you need to know. Hemi just means half. A sphere is a ball. So a hemisphere is literally half of the ball. The equator splits it into the northern and southern halves, and the prime meridian splits it into eastern and western. Simple as that. Now that we have our grid, let's zoom in and actually put these ideas to work. We're moving from the big, abstract globe to finding your place in a very specific location. For this explainer, we're going to drop a pin right in Oklahoma, USA. And as we're doing this, I want you to think about your own location. Can you place yourself on this mental map we're building? What continent? Which hemispheres? Now, one of the most important ways we define a place isn't just by its coordinates on a grid, but by what's around it, its relationships. And for Oklahoma, this number, this 6, is the key to that whole relationship. Any guesses what it represents? That's right, it's the number of neighbors Oklahoma has, the 6 states that touch its border. And this brings up a really important point. We often define a place by what it's next to. You can't really understand a place's identity without understanding who its neighbors are. Okay, so we've placed Oklahoma on the political map. For our final and maybe most detailed zoom in, we're going to look right past the borders and focus on the ground beneath us. We're talking about the actual physical texture of the land itself, the hills, the valleys, all that good stuff. The building blocks of this physical world are called landforms, and it's a really simple idea. Any natural shape you see on the Earth's surface, whether it's a huge mountain or a tiny hill, that's a landform. Let's play a quick game to really lock this in. Ready? Riddle me this. I am a piece of land, and I have water all around me. What am I? An island, of course. See how defining it like a riddle makes you picture that relationship between the land and the water? Okay, round two. Let's just flip that idea on its head. I am a large body of water, but this time I have land on all sides. So what am I? A lake! It's the perfect inverse of an island. And seeing them back to back like that makes both definitions just click. It's all about how land and water push up against each other to create these shapes. So, where has this whole journey taken us? From sorting continents all the way down to defining a lake, it all culminates right here. The ultimate goal isn't just to be able to read a map, it's to get to the point where you can build your own world. True understanding comes when you can take all these building blocks and create something new from scratch. We've gone from the entire planet down to the ground right under our feet. We've built this puzzle from the outside in. So the only question left to ask is this. Now that you have the tools to define, to divide, and to describe the world, what would your world look like?